Good morning, everyone. It is so awesome to be with all of you, the faithful. Worshiping with y'all today is one of the things that I am thankful for. I was also pumped when I woke up and, the temps were in the mid-50s, and I love that because I like when the weather matches the season. Yesterday, I got to go rafting with our students who are on their fall retreat right now at the Ocoee, and I love doing that. There's a lot that I have to be thankful for, and I'm sure for all of us, I don't know how life is like for you right now, but I'm sure if we all took a step back and really started to count our blessings, we would see that there's a lot to be grateful for. And as a church, we're going to be talking about that this month. We're starting a sermon series on gratitude. And one of my friends once called gratitude, he called it hope with teeth. And I love how intense that image is because gratitude can be a powerful thing. It's not a passive nothing that your mom makes you summon up whenever it's Thanksgiving and you have to go around the table and say one thing you're thankful for, but gratitude can change how you live, why you live, and what you're living for. And because of that, we're going to be reading out of Philippians chapter 4 today because Paul talks a lot about this root that we can find ourselves in, that gratitude can be kicked off when we're rooted in and living on something that's found in the Lord. And Paul, he's writing to this specific church that was born out of Philippi, and he loves these people he's writing to because they were the fruit of his labor. And when you read the story of Acts, you'll see that God really worked in some miraculous ways in this place and in this community. But Paul also had some really tough stretches in this town too. He was beaten up. He was put in prison for his faith there and locked away in jail because he was putting on full display the love of God. And so we see God's power at work through Paul, but we also see the difficulties in his life. And keeping that in mind, he's writing to those people who knew about his sacrifices and his hardship, and he tells them, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say, rejoice. Now, Paul, he's talking about joy. He's not saying, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Anyone? No? But that word, rejoice, same root word for joy. I think the Greek word is kairo, and I hope I'm spelling that right. And it doesn't mean happy or bubbly, but it's the state of being well off, thriving. The reason I'm glad, the reason I'm rejoicing is because I'm good. Now, that doesn't mean my situation is good. Life on the surface might be filled with problems, but underneath the surface is a root that can't be frostbitten or scorched by the sun. It can't be destroyed by the shifting seasons. This is why biblical joy, everyone, is so different from plain old happiness. And don't get me wrong, happiness is good. It's nice to be happy. It's nice when your team is ranked number 4 in the AP poll. That's nice when that happens. It's fun. It's a happy thing when I'm riding the bull at the front of a raft and it's all fun and games. Then I get thrown back and all the kids point and laugh at me. Happiness is good, but it's temporary. Sort of like a flower. How, it comes into bloom and it's a pretty thing. But then a week or two go by, and then you get that phone call, or something happens at work, or someone leaves me out. Something happens that makes my happiness wilt and wither, but this root of joy can somehow be always. In other words, there is a kind of joy that transcends circumstances and outcomes, and that's the kind of power that we're being invited to tap into, the kind of life we're being invited to root ourselves in. And there's an amazing truth here, because he's saying, I rejoice. I'm expressing joy. And he's in a Roman prison, by the way. That's where he's writing this from. And from what little we know about this last part of Paul's life story, he's either 1 week or 2 years away from being executed for his faith. So if we're telling ourselves, well, I would be more joyful, but you don't know how life has been. Man, Connor, I think it's awesome that we're talking about joy, but you don't know what my situation is. I know as Christians we're supposed to have joy, but you don't know my story. And here is Paul saying, no, I don't know your story, but I do know that there is a way you can be securely rooted even when you're in a Roman prison. A week to 2 years away from losing your life. And so he says, I rejoice. And he tells us how we can live on this joy too. He goes on, let your reasonableness be known to everyone. People might think you're crazy because you're always so joyful, but you're not, because the Lord is at hand. God is near to us. Do not be anxious about anything. Now that's a message for today. I know that this was intended for the Philippians, and their life was bound to be a worrying thing because in the early church you were literally putting your life at risk following Jesus because the culture was so set against you. But also to be human in general is to be vulnerable to all of the changes and unknowns of life. That in itself is a worrying thing. There are things that can give me anxiety, like test scores used to give me so much anxiety. People's opinions of me today still give me anxiety if I'm being honest. And I gotta tell y'all, I get so worried because I ask myself, am I going to be okay even when my situation is not okay? Yet instead of burying those anxieties we have just deep down inside, instead of just conceal, don't feel, like the Frozen girl says, Elsa, instead of doing that, I can take them to the root of my joy. But in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. I'll be honest, sometimes I lose sight of what prayer is, but we can't forget the awesome access that we have to God. I can bring my temporary problems to the one who is my eternal solution. And God hears and holds all of that. He hears your big worries, and guess what? He hears your small ones too. Like I remember when I was a kid and I was afraid that there was, a monster under my bed, or if Darth Vader was about to pop out of my closet. Anyone else have that fear? Just me? But I'd be so afraid, and what I would do is I would go to my parents' bedroom and wake them up and tell them what I was afraid of. And they didn't go, Connor, you silly little boy, why are you waking me up? Well, maybe there was a little bit of that because they're human, but they heard my concern. They comforted me, and they showed me that everything was going to be okay. A child can take anything to their parent because what happens to them is of interest to the parents. And in the same way, we can take anything to our Father, being sure that He is interested and concerned for you. And that comfort isn't nothing He gives us when we tell Him what we got going on. It's real. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and mind in Christ Jesus. The peace of God, it's so incomprehensible, because God is so incomprehensible, but it surpasses my understanding because it's so precious. I can't create this peace in my mind. My brain, with all of its useless trivia knowledge. I can't invent it. It's only from his giving. And when it's given, it's going to guard my heart and my mind. The image there is that your ultimate well-offness is going to be secured and rooted by the living presence of God. And the way to this peace is through prayer from a life that has rooted itself in joy. But this peace, everyone, it won't come from just what you give to him that's on your plate. But it's going to come from what he gives to you as well. Because if you look at verse 8, finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. What you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you. Truth, honor, justice, purity, love, condemnation, perfection, what is perfect and worthy of praise. He's describing the attributes of God, everyone. He's talking about the very things that God is and always has for us. And we have been given the very image of these attributes in the presence of Jesus. He is the most obvious proof that God hears the requests of his people and he responds because he is concerned. And I think we can root ourselves in these good things. That we can root ourselves in them, what God has given us when we're captivated by Christ. I'm talking about more than just an awareness that there was a dude 2,000 years ago and, his job was a carpenter, but he moonlighted as a miracle worker. I'm talking about more than just, hearing the words of Jesus and thinking, oh, well, maybe he'll offer me a ticket to heaven one day. I'm talking about knowing him. The revelation of who he actually is. So much so that we don't just want what he has to offer, we want him. We don't just tell ourselves, hey, I want a 3-step process to, help me fix my life, help me fix my marriage, help me build a better business, help me deal with whatever problem we have going on. The conviction is that I want him. I want to know him. I don't just want some benefits of Jesus sprinkled into my life and the plans that I have already made for myself. I want his plan. I want his presence in my life. And I want to move. I want to move from a place of, just growing up in church and being around the faith, being around Scripture, knowing all of the stories and all of the information. I want to move to actually knowing him. And when that's true, then you become captivated by Christ. And you become stunned by the gospel. I saw this just the other day. A few of us were in Nashville for a church gathering / conference thing, and someone got up who talked about just how grateful he was because, decades ago, he was diagnosed with a severe form of liver cancer. Yet somehow, by the grace of God, years after living past the prognosis, he's still alive. And now he gets to get up every single day being grateful for God giving him life. And to use his words, he just gets to walk with Jesus through life. And he's given us life today, everyone. And I'm not talking figuratively. He has literally put breath inside of our lungs right now. He's given me what I need to live, and he has shown me the proof of his grace-filled intentions towards me through the gift of Christ, who guarantees my life of knowing him both today and tomorrow. And when you root yourself in that truth, then you can be captivated by Christ. You can receive this peace and be stunned by the gospel. And when we hold what we have learned and seen and heard, and when we follow him by putting into practice the life that he has called us to live, then that peace that only God can bring, it'll guard my heart and my mind. He settled once and for all that for those who believe in him, everything will work out. And so I have peace, and I'm going to hold it close, and I'm going to be guarded and secure. And Paul says this is the secret. This is the ultimate life hack, this root. It's better than any life hack you can find on TikTok or Instagram. It's better than that. But because here is where the root starts to become so life-giving. When he wraps up this letter, Paul, he thanks them for sending whatever Venmo was back then, I guess. You know, he slaps a heart on that Venmo message. But he thanks them. But he's like, you know, I'm glad y'all were thinking of me, but I didn't send you a Venmo request. You know, I didn't have a need that I needed from you. I didn't need what you had to offer. And that's because of what he calls his secret. Verse 10, I rejoiced in the Lord greatly that now at length you have revived your concern for me. You were indeed concerned for me, but you had no opportunity. Not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. There's a secret apparently, but it's not so secret that God's not about to tell you exactly what that secret is. You know, it's kind of like spilling the tea with your friends, only this is the Lord's tea. When it comes to the difference between pursuing happiness and being rooted in joy, the secret involved, you can't just naturally process this. You have to be guided by God and assisted by him. And here's the secret. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. There's the secret, everyone. And you know, that's a very famous verse. You'll see a lot of athletes, you know, putting that verse on their face. It's really cool. A lot of fridge magnets, a lot of car stickers. And I love this promise. I think this is an awesome, awesome truth. It's a great passage. But this secret, it's not coming out of the power of positive thinking. It's coming out of the power of positive rooting. It's not coming out of, oh, I'm just going to, think positive thoughts and I'll be more joyful, I'll be stronger, I'll be better off. That's not what's happening here. Instead, what's happening is Paul saying, hey, I was in prison, I was beat up for my faith, and I still had joy. I still had what I need. You know why? Because God allows me to experience through Christ the strength I need no matter what's going on. I've been hungry and I've been well fed. I've been in plenty and I've been in need. I've been up against it, and you can insert any struggle that you've ever dealt with right in there. I know what it's like to go through struggle. But even in the struggle, I'm telling you, He's telling you, God's telling you, there's a secret, and the secret is this. I can do anything through Christ who gives me strength. So the message for your life is not, you need to get more strength. The message today is that God has enough strength for you. You don't have to gain anything from the world in order to live, but you can truly live rooted in joy for who He is. And hear me, everyone. The message that I want y'all to leave this place today is not that you can become self-sufficient. But the good news today and every day is that we can live on joy because we can be God sufficient. Joy is the condition that can overcome any situation. The person who walks with Jesus, they can cope with any trial that life throws at them because the hope they have through Jesus cannot wilt or wither. Paul, He could face anything because in everything he had Christ. Jesus cannot wilt or wither. And from this root will spring forth the fruit of a grateful heart. That from this wellspring of life, my life can be different and it can touch the lives of others. And I can't wait to talk about that with y'all later. But being thankful for him defeats any lie that I gotta have something else, because there's no one else I could ever need more. He showed me who he is. He's given me his love. He's given me himself. And so into my life, he has poured grace. And from this root, I can live for gratitude. We've all at one point or another pursued happiness and it being taken away from us. But thanks be to God that he has led us to joy. Will y'all pray with me?